I was 68 years old when my husband shoved me out of his car in the middle of a storm and told me to cry where no one can see you. I thought that was the most humiliating moment of my life, until a black limousine pulled up beside me and a blind woman I'd never met said, "Get in, Claire. I've been waiting 30 years for you." She knew my name, she knew my past, and she promised that the man who abandoned me in the rain would regret it for the rest of his life. That night was the beginning of everything: the mansion, the mirror that showed the truths I tried to forget, and the family secret that changed who I thought I was. But before I tell you how it all unfolded, would you have stepped into that limousine? I was 68 years old the night my husband threw me out of his car like I was a piece of trash he finally got tired of carrying. The sound of the door slamming still echoes inside me, a sharp final crack that felt like the end of something that had been dying for years. We were parked near a bus stop on the edge of New Haven rain, spreading across the pavement like sheets of broken glass. The streetlights flickered. The air tasted like metal and cold. Martin didn't even look at me when he said it. "Get out, Claire. If you're going to cry, do it somewhere no one sees you." And then he drove off. His taillights blurred through the rain, shrinking, until I wasn't sure if they were still real or just tears distorting the world around me. My clothes were soaked within seconds. My purse lay in a puddle where he had tossed it. And my phone, my only connection to anyone, was gone. Martin had taken it earlier that morning, claiming he needed to update the plan, but I knew better. He didn't want me calling anyone. Isolation had always been his quietest weapon. People walked past me, umbrellas, tilted forward, eyes straight ahead. Nobody stopped. To them, I wasn't a woman in pain. I was just another sad shape in the rain. It's humiliating how quickly dignity melts when you're left standing alone at a bus stop in the dark. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes. Maybe an hour. I was shivering so hard my teeth hurt. Cars hissed over the wet asphalt. I felt 68 years old in every bone, every joint, every memory. Then, the rain changed. It wasn't softer or heavier, just interrupted. A sleek black limousine rolled toward the curb, slow and deliberate, like it wasn't following the road, but following me. The back window rolled down before the car even stopped. A woman's voice drifted out low, warm, strangely confident. "You sound like a woman who's been thrown away too many times." I froze. The door opened, and a man in a dark coat stepped out holding an umbrella. He was tall, broad-shouldered, mid-50s maybe. The kind of presence that made you stand up straighter, even when you didn't mean to. "Ma'am," he said gently, "you're soaked. Please come inside." I shook my head automatically. No, I'm fine." But the voice from inside the limo answered before he did. "No, you're not." My eyes adjusted to the dim light. Inside sat an elderly woman, 70s, maybe older, her silver hair pulled back neatly, her hands folded over a polished wooden cane. And then I realized something. Her eyes didn't focus on me. They didn't focus on anything. She was blind. Yet she spoke with the certainty of someone who could see more than any of us. "My name is Eleanor Whitlock," she said. "And this is Gus. He doesn't bite unless I tell him to." Gus snorted, but there was affection behind it. I tried to speak, but my throat felt tight. Why are you stopping?" Rain tapped gently against the umbrella overhead. Eleanor tilted her head, listening as if she could hear the tremble in my voice. "Because I know the sound of a woman who's been abandoned," she said. "And no woman deserves to stand alone in the cold after everything she has survived." My breath caught. She didn't ask what happened. She already knew. Before I could find a response, another pair of headlights swept across us. A car slowed 2 spaces ahead. Martin's. I knew the sound of that engine, the way it struggled before shifting gears. I knew it the way a soldier knows the sound of a familiar gunshot. He pulled over, stepped out irritated, as always, scanning the area like he expected to see me crying exactly where he left me. But he didn't. Instead, he saw me standing next to a limousine, and a blind woman dressed like old money royalty. Eleanor lifted her chin slightly, though her eyes never opened wider. "Get in, Claire." My name. She said my name. I hadn't told her. Martin stared, brow knit, confused. offended, maybe threatened. The expression of a man who suddenly realizes the woman he underestimated might not be as alone or small as he believed. Something inside me, some tired, bruised part, rose for the first time in years. I stepped into the limousine. The leather seat was warm, the air softly perfumed with lavender. The door closed with a gentle thud, and for the first time in my life, I felt protected. Through the tinted window, I saw Martin take a single step forward, as if wanting to stop the car, demand an explanation, drag me back. But it was too late. Gus slid behind the wheel. The engine hummed, and Eleanor turned her face toward the window where Martin stood. "A curious thing about life," she murmured, "is how it always collects its debts in the end." The limo pulled away, leaving my old life standing on the curb, small and shivering and furious. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know why this stranger helped me. I didn't know how she knew my name. But I knew one thing: nothing about this night was random. And this woman, this Eleanor Whitlock, had been waiting for me. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you if you think Martin's behavior was unforgivable. Type 10 in the comments. And tell me, what would you have done in my place? The limousine carried us through winding Connecticut roads, past stretches of dark forest that looked like they were holding their breath. I didn't speak. I didn't know how to. Eleanor didn't speak either, not at first. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded over her cane, like she could feel the air in the car, the way sighted people read a book. Finally, she tilted her head toward my shivering. "There's a blanket beside you, Claire." I froze again. I hadn't made a sound. "How did you—" "I listen," she said softly. "The world has more to say than people think." We drove in silence until the limousine turned down a long private road lined with bare maple trees. Their branches reached overhead like ancient hands, and at the end of the drive stood a massive mansion of stone and ivy. Whitlock Estate. I swallowed hard. It didn't feel like a house. It felt like a chapter of history waiting to open. Gus parked and stepped out to open my door. Eleanor didn't wait for help. She tapped her cane twice, stood, and moved with the certainty of someone who had memorized every inch of the earth beneath her feet. "Come, Claire," she said. Thunder rolled behind us as we crossed the threshold into a cavernous foyer. High ceilings, oil portraits, a chandelier dripping with crystals, warm light from wall sconces that flickered like candle flame. The air smelled of cedar and jasmine. Why are you doing this?" I whispered. Eleanor turned toward me, her eyes unfocused but strangely piercing. "Because someone once did it for me," she said. "And because tonight you finally asked for help whether you meant to or not." She continued walking, cane tapping, 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 across polished floors. I felt every bruise on my heart throb in response. She led me to a sitting room with a roaring fire. Gus brought towels and tea. My hands trembled as I wrapped my fingers around the cup. "Drink," Eleanor said. "Your bones are too cold for honesty yet." I stared at her. Honesty. Was that what tonight was about? I didn't know that word anymore. I had spent my entire marriage shrinking myself just to keep peace with a man who wanted a servant, not a partner. She sat across from me, perfectly still. "You think I picked you up tonight by accident?" she said. "It wasn't," I whispered. She tilted her head in a way that made my heart stop. "Nothing about you is an accident, Claire Whitmore." Her use of my full name sent a chill down my spine. "I never told you." "No, but I knew." How instead of answering, she said, "Tell me about the man who left you in the rain." I swallowed. Hard. "It was just another fight," I whispered. The truth rose like a bruise spreading under skin. "No, it was the last fight. He said he was tired of my crying." "And why were you crying?" I hesitated. The words hurt. "Because I finally saw him, Eleanor. Really saw him. And I didn't like what I saw." She nodded slowly. "Good. That means a part of you is waking up." I didn't understand what she meant, but it scared me and comforted me at the same time. She leaned forward slightly. "Claire, I want you to stay here. At least for a few days. What? No, I can't stay in your home. I don't even know you. You know me more than you think. Her voice was calm but final, like a judge tapping a gavel. I'll show you to the guest room, she continued. But first, there is something I want you to see. She stood tapping her cane toward a long hallway. I followed her, unsure why my legs obeyed. We entered a room lit only by the fire, a music room with a grand piano in the corner and a massive mirror mounted on the far wall. But it was covered by a white cloth. I felt something shift inside me, something small, something scared. What is that? I asked. Eleanor walked toward the mirror, her fingertips brushing the cloth. This, she said softly, is a place where the past becomes honest. Her hand froze over the draped frame. The mirror shows nothing supernatural, Claire. It only shows what we refuse to see. I didn't want to believe her. I didn't want to step closer, yet I did. My reflection, dim, shaky, peeked through the faint outline beneath the cloth. Why are you showing me this? I whispered. Because you have lived too long pretending you're fine. Her words hit me like a hammer wrapped in velvet. Remove the cloth. I don't want to. That is exactly why you must. My hand lifted before I could stop it. The fabric slid to the floor, and there I was. Older, wet hair, red eyes. A woman who had been loved badly for far too long. But then, behind my reflection, just for a fraction of a second, I saw a kitchen from years ago. A man slamming a plate. A younger version of me bending to pick up the pieces. I gasped. The image vanished. I staggered back. What? What was that? Eleanor's face softened. Truth, she said simply. And truth always returns when we can no longer outrun it. The room felt too quiet, too alive. I turned to her with my heart pounding. What do you want from me? She smiled sad, knowing ancient. Not what I want, Claire. What you've needed for decades. My breathing faltered. What is that? To finally remember who you were before someone convinced you to forget. The fire crackled. Wind rattled the windows. The mirror stood bare, waiting patient. Rest now, Eleanor said. Tomorrow we begin. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you if you think the mirror is hiding more secrets. Type 10 in the comments. I barely slept that night. The mirror haunted me, quiet still, but alive in a way I couldn't explain. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that younger version of myself kneeling on a kitchen floor. The woman I used to be long before I forgot my own voice. At dawn, I went downstairs. Eleanor was already sitting in her favorite armchair near the window, hands folded over her cane face, turned toward the light she couldn't see. You didn't rest, she said. How do you? I hear your exhaustion. Her calmness disarmed me. I sat across from her. Eleanor, that mirror showed me things I haven't thought about in decades. No, she corrected gently. It showed you things you've tried not to think about. I swallowed hard. She reached out her hand, brushing mine with surprising steadiness. Claire, you've lived so long inside someone else's shadow that you've forgotten your own shape. My throat tightened. What am I supposed to do with everything I saw? Forgive yourself for surviving it, she said. And then decide who you want to be now. Her words settled into me like warm sand. But before I could answer, a knock echoed from the front of the house. Gus entered a moment later, hat in hand. Ms. Whitlock, there's a man outside asking for Mrs. Whitmore. My chest froze. It couldn't be. Not this soon, not now. But it was. Martin Hale stood in the courtyard, unshaven, wrinkled suit, the arrogance drained out of him, like someone had reached in and pulled the spine from his body. He looked small, almost frightened. Claire, he breathed when he saw me. Thank God. I need to talk to you. I didn't answer. I simply turned and walked into the garden, letting him follow. When the door closed behind us, the silence carried more weight than any words could. Martin ran a shaky hand through his hair. Everything fell apart, he whispered. The business, the money, the woman I was seeing, she left. I don't have anyone. I looked into his eyes that had once controlled me, shadowed me, shrunk me. Now they were begging. I need a place to stay, he said. Just for a few days. We can work things out. Try again. Try again. As if the problem had been a minor inconvenience. As if years of brokenness could be erased by his fear of being alone. I'm not asking for much, he insisted. I'm your husband. No, I said softly. You were my husband. He blinked. And for the first time in our entire marriage, I wasn't the one shrinking. You left me in the rain, I reminded him. At a bus stop, without a phone. At 68 years old, Martin. He closed his eyes like the truth was a stab wound. I know, he whispered. And I'm begging you to forgive me. I did forgive him. But forgiveness didn't mean returning to the cage I had finally stepped out of. You don't need me, I said gently. You need consequences. He stared at me stunned because I had never spoken to him this way before. Eleanor's cane tapped behind us. She stood at the garden entrance, face turned toward us, like she could sense the tension. Forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation, Mr. Hale, she said calmly. Your wife has learned that. Martin stiffened at the word wife. I stepped closer to Eleanor, the woman who had become more family to me in a week than Martin had in decades. I forgive you, I said, looking directly at him. Truly. But you can't stay here, and we won't be trying again. For a moment, I thought he would argue explode demand. But he didn't. He simply deflated. He nodded, turned and walked away with the slow, defeated steps of a man who finally realized the person he took for granted had outgrown him. When he disappeared through the gates, my legs shook, not with fear, but with relief so deep it bordered on grief. Eleanor squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, Claire. I leaned into her tears, burning my eyes. Thank you, I whispered, for everything. She smiled softly. My time is nearly over. I froze. Don't say that. But she knew. That night she died peacefully in her sleep, hands folded, face serene, as if she had finally found a place where even darkness couldn't reach her. Gus found her at sunrise. Beside her was a cedar box with my name on it. Inside were two things, a legal envelope with the Whitlock seal and a small golden key. The envelope read, To Claire Whitmore. My niece, the woman I prayed you'd become. My breath caught. Niece. She had never been a stranger. Inside the envelope was her will. She left everything Whitlock estate, her accounts, her land, her foundation funds to me. Not as charity, as inheritance. The key opened a hidden chest in the basement. Inside photographs of my mother, holding me as a child at the Whitlock estate, old letters, and Eleanor's journal chronicling her mission to help women escape abuse. And now it was mine to continue. 1 month later, I reopened the estate as the House of Dawn, a refuge for women recovering from violence, abandonment, and loss. Women like me. Women like Eleanor. Women like my mother. Every night when the lights dim, I stand before the mirror in the music room. It no longer shows me who I used to be. It shows me who I've become. A woman who walked out of the rain and stepped into her own life. And now, before I end my story, let me ask you, how did this journey make you feel? If this story touched you, comment 100. Tell me which country you're watching from, and please share this video so more people can hear it.